Please don't just repeat the same thing over and over again. Hey everyone, welcome to Prince the Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with my blind reaction to episode 14 of Delicious in Dungeon. And yeah, I'm pretty worried. I'm pretty concerned that they're just going to repeat the same basic thing over again with just different specifications. Because having Marcel, you could say basically captured again by the Mad Mage this time, and everything, it's just like, it just feels like it's just repeating the same thing. It's like, oh, first arc, we have to travel through the dungeon, save Marcel. Second arc, travel through the dungeon, or not Marcel, Fallon. Travel through the dungeon, save Fallon. Second arc, travel through the dungeon, save Fallon. It's like, it's the same thing. Even if certain specifications are a bit different, the basic concept is the same thing between both arcs, and it feels lazy. It feels like it could be lazy depending on how it's handled here. And I unfortunately don't have a huge amount of, like, exceptional expectation here. Because I just feel that it's probably just going to do the same thing. Like, they're talking about, like, okay, we're going to get out of the dungeon. We're going to leave and restock and everything. And it's like, okay, so they have to go through the dungeon again, going to take on different monsters this time, cook different monsters, go through the journey again, find Fallon, stop whatever is going on with the Mad Mage and her. It's repetitive at this point. Like, the only thing I can hope for is that they, don't do that. That they instead decide to get through this entire Fallon stuff rather quickly, and instead, like, go into something else. But I don't see that happening. And it's just, I'm just really worried about that. Because that could actively hurt the series for me. And not necessarily ruin it, but it would hurt the series. It would cut back on a lot of things and just ruin the potential that this series has. I just hope it ends up proving me wrong. I hope it ends up being still really good. Because I'm really worried about the path it's going down at the moment. So, we're going to see. We're going to check out what happens in this episode and hope for the best. Let's give it a shot and see episode 14 of Delicious in Dungeon. Cutting in here real quick to remind you of all the awesome content we have on the channel. Between Monday and Friday, we have a plethora of awesome series reactions with 2 on Wednesday. We also have movie reactions every Saturday and Sunday. I do pre-record them during the week, but I upload them on the weekend. And don't forget all the gaming content we have both on this channel and the secondary Princess of Gaming channel. We have Horizon Forbidden West every other day and Baldur's Gate 3 every single day on this channel, while we also have Nier Automata every Saturday on the other. And don't forget to click the link down in the description below to get to today's reaction. I redirected just due to copyright reasons. And finally, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video if you want to see more awesome content such as this. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let's get on to the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So I have some mixed thoughts on this episode. Because on one hand, this episode actually alleviated a lot of my concerns. It actually seems like it's going to do a lot more than I guess you could say, hoped for. And makes it seem like a lot of the things I was most worried about aren't going to be an issue. But I am excessively confused as to how Kabru's party even works. And let's get that out of the way first. Kabru's party dies pretty consistently. We know this. It's been kind of a recurring gag. Where I guess we're calling it the Toden Party now. They consistently come upon Kabru's party dead. They loot their food and stuff and go on their way. We know this is a thing. This has been a thing this entire series so far, where occasionally we would come across this and all. So, this party is not the most competent. They're not the strongest, they're not the most skilled. But this episode kind of shows otherwise. Until the end, and I'll get to that. Because most of this episode, we see Kabru as being excessively intelligent, intensely observational, and just a super competent person. So, what's up with that? We also see the others in the party seem to be competent enough, maybe not anywhere kind of near his level, but they're competent enough where they can hold their own. Yet they're constantly dying. And then at the end, this generic ass sea serpent almost kills them with all the competence and intelligence and observational abilities they have. Mostly, again, Kabru himself. It's like, it seems almost contradictory. Like, you show this party in their best light. You make a very notable point of showing how capable they are. But then in the same breath, in the same episode, you show the literal opposite. And I understand circumstances can change things. I understand that with certain circumstances, they may not be especially equipped for certain things. Like the insect coin things. Maybe they didn't know about those. They weren't prepared for those. The sea serpent. It seems like they didn't know like what to do about like fighting on those rocky waters and stuff. The one was talking about like not being able to use his magic because crazy shit could get mixed in if he's like not concentrated enough. And it's like, okay, I get it, but the way they were showcased before was way too competent for that. And at least Kabru. It makes it come across in a way that Kabru should be able to just completely solve any of these issues that they've come across. Like, he should have the intelligence, the capabilities, the knowledge. All of this should be set for him to solve like any of these problems that they've died to. They made him. That's the issue I'm having here. The first like third of this episode made him too competent for everything that we've seen from this party in the past and even just after. It made him too competent. because it conflicts with everything else we've seen. Maybe that'll get further explored in future episodes, but it's a notable thing, at least for now. It's a notable issue that I have there. It's like you can't have a character who's both excessively competent and excessively incompetent at the same time, unless there's like some kind of like super valid, like lore based reason for that, and there doesn't seem to be. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's talk about the positives of this episode. My fears were centered around, like I talked about in the pre-thoughts, that this arc, this second half of the season, would be too repetitive in regards to the first half. That it would just be the same thing over again and not do anything new, unique, special, interesting, or different enough to set it apart in any notable way, outside of just a few little things here and there that just changes the specifics of what's going on. This episode, if this is anything to go by, quells those fears a bit. Because this episode not only gave us a deeper look at Kabru's party, it introduced Shura's party, the new party of a former member of the Toten party. We got to see the party that Namari's a part of again. And we got some more info that might be from a biased perspective regarding the Toten party and everything. Like what they're doing and why Kabru doesn't trust them and stuff. I think that he's like seeing things from a biased perspective and doesn't really understand what's going on. If I'm being honest, I think his like distrust in them is based on misunderstandings. But we got a lot of good information here, and again, we see how observational he is with just putting together everything about the party and being entirely correct about pretty much everything. It shows how smart and intelligent he is, and also gives us good lore. And I like at the end that we do see Shura's party come in, and it really makes me curious though, because it's like, okay, so he and Namari, we know, left the party at the very beginning of the series, episode 1. We know what Namari went to do and why she left, and now we're finding out Shura left, but we don't know why. But we also see that he's come back into the dungeon with an entirely different party and is seemingly trying to save Fallon on his own. Does he not trust the others in his original party? Is that why he decided to leave? Did he feel like they were at fault for what happened? But he still, cares enough to want to rescue Fallon and everything? Is that the idea? Because otherwise, I don't know. But I'm curious to find out. And getting introduced to him here at the beginning of the second core of the season is really smart. Because again, we've already been introduced to Namari, and so now we get to meet him. And his party seems pretty interesting so far. The one big chick, who I can't tell like what race she's supposed to be. She has like the horns and the giant club and everything. Do not tell me, by the way, because it'll probably say in the series what race she is and everything. But it's like, she's adorable. Like right off the bat. Like we didn't even get to see a lot of her, but she's super cute. She has like this very rounded, adorable face as well, like which contrasts with her like massive, like buff ass size. Which it's like, okay, that's just entirely my type. So it's like, okay. Um, she also seems very capable, very strong, which is good. Their entire party seems very capable, mind you. I definitely want to know more about them, and hopefully we'll get to know more. But another thing to note is that on their way to try and oh, excuse me. Excuse me. Wow. On their way to try and leave the dungeon, the Totem party has gotten lost and are having trouble because of that. So, yeah. They're, I guess, not going to go out and then go through the entire dungeon again because they can't even find their way out in the first place. That's wild. That's pretty wild. Um, yeah, this is going to be interesting because this is definitely going to be different. I think a lot of my fears have definitely been quelled here, and I think that it's going to be like introducing these characters, getting to know them, and we're still going to be trying to save Fallon again. Like again, that's still the same, and I still wish it wasn't. But there's a lot more going on that's going to add to that, a lot more depth to it, a lot more interest factor. And I'm very curious to see like how much more they change it up and how much more these new characters change the dynamic of things. Cuz presumably our the parties we focused on in this episode are going to come in contact with the Totem party. For multiple reasons, this pretty much has to happen. It's been set up perfectly here with Kabru's distrust of them, with Shora now coming into play. They've got to connect and meet up at some point, presumably soon. Maybe not right away next episode, but soon enough. And I don't know if it's going to lead to a fight. I don't know if it's going to lead to them like working together, maybe both. I don't know. But I'm very curious to see how they handle this and where they continue to go. Some of those views on the Totem Party were really interesting, though, like with Chilchuck. It's like him being seen as like overly, like this overly greedy, money hungry guy who's you know, doing like some nefarious deeds just to get money and stuff. It's like I could kind of see him having done that, but I don't think like where he's currently at he would. I don't know. I think like he's not at that point where he would do that right now. But like the entire thing about like with the apparent scam that they're talking about with the Towden siblings, it's like I definitely think that's a misunderstanding. They didn't really say anything negative about Marcel, which fair because she's perfect and awesome. Uh, I'm not kidding when like I do genuinely say she's my favorite character in this, and not just because of Emily Rudd, though she does an amazing job. Um, I just like her the most in terms of personality and character and everything, and I think she's the most reasonable of the group. Most of the time. But yeah, they didn't really say anything bad about Marcel. They didn't really say much of anything bad about Fallon either. It was most. It seemed to mostly be centered around Laios, and of course Chilchuck. Senshi, they just don't really know much about. They're just like questioning, like, oh, who would take Namari's place and everything. Like, why would another dwarf do that and stuff. But they're saying like, oh, he must be crazy, but it's like that's pretty much all they said about him. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see these parties actually meet up without one of them being dead. So, wonder what's going to go on there. It's yeah, it's an episode that I'm pretty mixed on. Like I said, there's a few things that just don't make sense to me, that just like feel conflicting with what we've seen before. But overall, I would say I enjoyed the episode, and like I said, it quelled a lot of fears. Plus, I'm very interested in the big lady. She very much interests me. Don't tell me details. Like I said, no spoilers. They'll probably go into that. So for the time being, thank you for tuning in. Let me know what you thought of this episode. And for now, I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See you all next time.